My name is Ryan, and today I've got a presentation in preparation for an event I'm running in August. It's GFD North, so if anyone's interested in game, film, design, you can head on over to gfdnorth.uk and find out what we're all about. If you're also interested in seeing any more of the images I'm about to show on the following slides, you can head on over to drawntothenorth.com. That's my personal freelancing website. And today I'm going to be talking about solving problems and design thinking. So I'm just going to intro what concept art and concept design is for the people who don't know. I'm going to talk about problem solving, I'll give you a short case study, and I'll just give you some tools and resources that you can all take away. So what is concept art and concept design? So concept art is just imagery created for game and film. It generally focuses on just the overall big picture, the blue sky ideas, and you focus more on just the colour, the mood, the lighting, the large shapes, and you don't go too much into detail about how this stuff works. It's just there just to try and sell the idea. Now the difference between this and concept design, or concept designers focus more on architecture, on vehicles and props, and like to think about how things work, how they'll be put together, and also think about how much it will cost to actually build this stuff on the set. And if you work in game, you might be thinking about things like the feasibility in the actual game engine. Is it even possible to load and run? That's the general differences between the two, and there is some overlap between concept art and concept designers. Some people do both and others specialise, but the key thing to keep in mind is that we're both trying to solve problems for the clients. And so the next slide is all about solving the right problems. So irregardless of whether you work in data science, or you work as a nurse in a hospital, or in IT, or whatever it is, you need to first think about how to understand your client's needs. So this is one of the first things we like to think about as designers, which is empathising with your end user. And this will help start to generate some ideas of how you can help them. So one of the first questions we can think about is, have you noticed any repeating issues that your staff, clients, or patients come up against? So again, this comes from design thinking, where we empathise with the problems that they're facing, and this can help generate those ideas. So once you've got those ideas down and you've come up with some different ones, maybe you can think about, are there businesses already out there that solve the problem you're proposing to solve? Because very often we come up with that brilliant idea and some other guy down the street's already done it. Or even worse, you might already be in an industry or a market that's very competitive. Which leads me on to the next point, how can you differentiate to provide a much better solution? The whole idea behind this came from the book, The Blue Ocean Strategy, in where we try and differentiate and create completely new value markets where none existed before. Or like I was saying before, if you do work in a very competitive industry, it can help you break out of that and create something that's very unique. Okay, so then just moving on, so you've got your unique idea, you've got your business, maybe you just want to try and be more efficient. So we can ask ourselves questions like, where during your workday are you slowed down? Is there over or under communication? Are things labelled and faster to access? And during your day, are there any areas where there are multiple steps to complete an action? And can any of these be eliminated? We all try and do this, naturally, but if you are interested in learning more, there's an entire methodology and process behind this thinking. It's called Lean Six Sigma. And it goes into depth about where you're wasting time, making sure things are labelled and all this other stuff, and there's much more detail to it that you can go online and completely read for free. And then finally, the last question you could ask is, what repeating tasks or problems do you solve that could be done faster by using a new tool, software, or by implementing a change in staff behaviour? This is probably the most difficult because it may require you to actually go out there and learn new skills or to try and change things at the organisational level. But either way, every time we come up against one of these questions, we need a creative problem-solving tool. And one that I'm just going to share with you today, and again, there's tons online, we all know this, we can go find loads online, but one of the tools we can use is taking one idea from another discipline or area and applying it to a completely different one. So in the example I'm about to give, we have the Great Ormond Street Hospital and the F1 pit crew. And the key issue here is they were losing the lives of children following the handover process from the surgery to the intensive care unit. The entire process of transferring the child after the surgery has to be done in 15 minutes. And the transfer involves the coordination of many wires, equipment, people and information. And so one day, the surgeons, after a surgery, were watching a Formula 1 pit crew on TV, and they came up, watching how quickly they could change the tyres and refuel the car. which is all done in about 7 seconds. So the surgeons decided to fly down to Italy and actually watch this in person. And while they were there, some of the techniques they learned by watching them was that the Formula 1 pit crew would record the pit stop change and analyse it afterwards. They would ask themselves questions as well, like what could go wrong, what would we do if it goes wrong, and how can we prepare for the worst case scenario. So after watching the pit crew and flying back to the hospital, they recorded their own handover process and started to analyse where they were going wrong. One of the Formula 1 consultants for the hospital watched the footage back and actually suggested to them, okay, is there any way they could just create a technology that reduces all these steps down into one? But sadly, the hospital couldn't afford it because the equipment would be too expensive. So instead, they focused on improving the coordination of the staff after the surgery is done. So on the right hand side you can see this diagram where you'd have all these different people and their roles after the surgery. I'm running out of time, so I'll try and speed up. So to summarise it in a nutshell, just to give you some figures so you can know it actually works. So apparently they gave several measures. Before the new handover process and protocol, they had 30% of patient errors. Then after they implemented this process, it was down to less than 10%. So it worked amazingly well. And if you do want to learn more, there's the links to go check that out. They also did the same thing in Wales a few years later. It was actually not for children, it was about the resuscitation of patients. So there's 2 hospitals which did it, both worth checking out. It's an amazing story to learn and read. And now just to give you all some time-saving tips that I like to use in my own life, of how I like to speed up and do other things. I'm hoping these will all be applicable for everyone. So the first one is, anybody here, just quick show of hands, use EVERNOTE? So there's a couple of people in here already. It's an amazing tool, it's completely free. It organises your notes in a really easy to organise way. And the most important thing is the way I like to use it is purely reflection. So at the end of the day, maybe you can all ask yourself, how can I speed up? How do I need to improve? And the questions I mentioned before. So I won't go through all of them because I've run out of time, but those are the main ones. And also, there's a book list. And if you're going to pick any one out of all these that's probably going to improve you the most, or set you out on a new career, it's the Blue Ocean Strategy. I highly recommend reading it. It might give you some ideas to create a new business or improve upon what you're doing. Thank you all for listening. That's it. Thank you.